I will count 3, 2, 1, and then I'll bring everything in. All right. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. And a very, very warm welcome back to the Chef JKP podcast. This week we have got a super, super duper influential guy. His name is Homam Ayaso, and he is the Regional Creative and Social Media Director of Wonder 8. Homam, welcome.
Thank you, Chef James. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and be part of this awesome podcast.
So look, you are known in the social media world
Correct.
as the Gastronaut. However, before we even get into that, can you just explain to us how your love of food and media came about?
It's a long story, so I don't know if the audience is ready for 3 hours podcast non-stop. No, I'm just joking. Simply, it was from my childhood actually, and I think the real inspiration was my mother. So the funny story, to be honest, is my first cake actually happened when I was 4 years old. That was my first cake. So I think if it tells you something, it tells you that okay, this kid is into the kitchen. And I kind of learned all the food passion, all the recipes from my mom, cooking with her in the kitchen, and all these things. Um, and then slowly I start understanding the cuisines more, understanding the ingredients more, the spices, the herbs, and all these things. Growing up as well, we start going to restaurants and all these things, and I start understanding the different elements of the food and all that. And what I started to do is, which I actually also learned from my mom, is try to replicate the recipe at home. So doing that, I start to learn and teach myself how to cook different cuisines, different dishes, and all these things. And I start to learn more and more about the ingredients and fall in love with food simply.
And look, you are a regional creative director.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Which is my second passion. So I don't know if you know, but I grew up in Saudi Arabia as well. I'm originally from Syria, but I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and I always had that kind of like geekiness into me. At the same time, I love the art and I love the creative part and all these things. So when I graduated from high school, I got the chance to enter King Fahd University in Saudi Arabia, and I chose computer engineering as a major for me. I started super excited, super interested, and I was like, yes, this is what I want. From the first semester, I felt I'm not sure I want to continue this as my career. I signed up with a small advertising agency and I started studying and working at the same time. So I learned everything from scratch from an advertising agency. And it's been 17 years now in this domain. I slowly grow up from being a designer who start to know how to use the tools and the colors and all these things until I reach where I am now.
Wow, so quite a full-on journey.
Yep.
And of course, so graphic design, working with big brands, all of these sorts of things. So quite a huge amount of experience within the digital world.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about the Gastronaut. Tell us all about that, please.
So this is when you combine the professional life with the passion as well. I think at the end of the day, they are all coming out of passion. And I think that's what I would think I'm successful of what I'm doing in terms of my professional life and as the gastronaut, as an influencer as well. So continuing the journey, and when I came to Dubai, I think 11 years ago, uh, and you know Dubai, it's full with restaurants, it's full with cuisines, it's such a melting pot for a lot of culture, a lot of individual creative people and all that. So I start visiting restaurants, discovering more interesting cuisines, and you know here Michelin stars, celebrity chefs. You have all underground as well restaurants, like from an Afghani place to the corner to the highest restaurant in the world. Um, there's so much to discover, and I start naturally between my experience in digital world and between my passion, taking pictures of these foods that I'm trying, and then try to replicate them at home and start to repeat this, try to repeat it all the time. And slowly I understand that there's actually a career for that, which is called influencers, like we see them nowadays, which is basically people who go review things and talk about them and influence people to try them back. So slowly this become my new kind of addiction slash passion, and the gastronaut starts because it's not only about the food as well. Traveling around the world give me a more exposure of seeing and learning from different chefs, from different people, and from different cultures as well. So even if you follow my pages, for example, when I go and I travel, when I went to Hong Kong, you can see like a couple, for example, you can see a couple of landmarks, but the majority of the focus was what is the culture of that country, what is behind the scenes, where people don't usually go, but there is a beauty in it. And that's the journey of the gastronauts, basically getting out the culture of the cities and the food behind it as well. Because as you know, food is a huge part of every civilization, of every culture around the world.
And it must have been quite interesting for you. I mean, specifically when I came to the Middle East, I was astounded by the beautiful foods, the culture. Um, it's not just hummus.
No,
It's so
definitely
much.
not.
It's so much more than that, and such a rich and incredible history. How is it for you, as you said, growing up? You know, coming from Syria, growing up in Saudi, and then coming over here. Were the foods interconnected, or does everybody have something different to share?
Every country that I lived in. So I lived in Syria, I lived in Saudi, in Bahrain, here as well. Um, each country has different signature, different type of expressing the food culture. And I think even here, like you have the hardcore Emirati cuisine, and at the same time you have the fusion of the Emirati cuisine. So you don't have the specific definition of the Emirati cuisine because it can go so varied, right? So I think it's different from a country to another, but what when you travel more, you will discover even further than where you're living as well.
And I think there's so much traveling to be done, especially for food
Yeah,
and cultures and things like this. And hopefully, once things sort of get back to
hope
normal,
so.
we can replicate a few more things. Now, look, in terms of myself, I just want to understand. I have two questions for you. First question is, what is an influencer?
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, are you an influencer?
Um, so an influencer is a person who can influence other to do something, or that who influence others to try something or to discover something with them. This is who is an influencer. An influencer should not be, to be honest, as a profession, I will tell you an influencer should do one and two and three. But as a person, I will tell you every one of us is an influencer. Like if you are sitting in a group of friends and you said, "Well, I went to that shop and I like what they have," and they went because you recommend that, you are an influencer. If you are sitting with your family and you said, "Well, I ordered from that pizza place and it was amazing," and they ordered the next day because you said that, you influenced them to do that. So it's the act of influencing people to do something based on your recommendation, and that comes when people trust who you are, trust what you are talking about, because a lot of people can say a lot of things and you'll just hear it from one ear and drop it from the other. But when you trust the person in front of you, you will try what they are saying, and trust that they are giving you an accurate information, and that's who an influencer should be.
Because in my trade, and specifically, let's say within the last, certainly the last 10 years, you've had lots of people who are not necessarily as well known as yourself. They come into a restaurant, they say, "I'm an influencer, I have XYZ followers, I would like a free meal, otherwise I'm going to talk badly on social media." That's number one as an influencer. Number two,
That's not an influencer, let me tell you that.
yes, exactly. And so, I think I'm talking on behalf of chefs. How can you get to know that someone is a true influencer, that you can trust them?
Listen, if this conversation started by, "If not, I'm going to badmouth," like this is the biggest sign on saying like, this is the wrong guy or the wrong person or whatever. I would say a normal conversation would tell you, like it's like how you treat with human being. Like you either become a friend with someone or you either like, this guy's not for me, you know? You either trust what they are saying and you find friendly a conversation and you are, whatever facts they are telling you and feeding you, you feel like, that could be true. You feel there is an influence. In a professional way, I would say just look at their profiles. If it's promoting every second restaurant, if it's non-stop food and let's talk about food, for example, foodies. If it's just like non-stop promotion for everything there, that means it's just a quantity, not a quality. And second, you can always monitor of say, how they say it, how they describe it, what they write about it, the way they express it. If everything is good, that means that it's not good. You know, not everything is shiny in Dubai. Not everything is shiny in the world. You know, there's the good things and there are the bad things. Even the good restaurants, you can miss few details, right? Even in the best restaurants in Dubai, some dishes will be ahead, some dishes will be an average. You cannot go to a restaurant like, okay, maybe I'm not that fair. Some restaurants are brilliant actually, and like they have spot on dishes and service and all these things, but it's not the same case in every single other restaurant, let's say. And when you see someone saying, "Oh, everything is perfect, everything's happy, everything's," it's good to promote positivity, but you need to be honest about it as well. So I think that's what differentiate a real influencers other than not a real one. And this is how you can tell that okay, there's something good happening here or something not accurate happening here.
And in this day and age, of course, it's a digital age. You can literally influence someone from halfway around the world. You know, if they're coming to Dubai, well, I want to see what's going on, then they can see the food scene, all those sorts of things. From your point of view, do you think influencers, or the real influencers, I would say, would be able to push restaurants, hotels, or are some influencers there just for a free meal?
Um, I would say yes, there's definitely a chance for them to promote. At the end, it's an advertisement business somehow, right? I come to your restaurant, I talk about what you're doing, I expose the world to what chefs restaurants have. You'll get something from me, you know. So it's an advertisement. Sorry, I struggle a bit with the word, um, and it's a service that deserves to be treated well. A free meal is not the right approach. You know, it's not always the right thing, and I think real influencers actually help the businesses to grow and help the people to it's spreading awareness about something, you know. So I lost track of what I'm saying a bit, but I would say a short answer would be yes, it definitely helps the businesses, um, and it's not about the number of followers at the end of the day. It's about how actually you are influenced for other people.
I think that's a brilliant answer, because yes, it's not all about quantity; it should be about quality.
Exactly.
So I think it's also about that sort of relationship of give and take.
Mhm.
You know, how many? It's not about the followers; it's about bringing real people who are fans and all those sorts of things. So I think that's a really fantastic answer.
And I have to add something as well. Like back in the days, you used to have sorry, food critics, right? And these people's job was like to go mysteriously, try something, and write about you. The industry shifted a bit, and influencers are doing this now. But also, food is very subjective. Of like, I might like it, you might not, you know, and even five people on the table, they might all agree on this dish is brilliant, or might disagree that everyone have their own opinion. So it's very sensitive of being the difference of like understanding the food before you talk about, you know. It's not like, okay, I look good, I have my way with people, I'll just like impose my personal opinion on everyone. You need to understand a bit about the food. You need to understand a bit about the food industry, the ingredients, to be able to speak about it. Otherwise, what are you doing? You know, you're just saying your personal taste. You're not actually giving a valid value for the dish that you're trying.
That's why I'm a big fan of what you do, because you really cook yourself. You understand recipes. You and not at the same time you have this incredible career that's obviously digitally led, and you've really learned so much. That's why I think people respect you a lot more, because you can really see that you cook, whereas not necessarily some other influencers understand the craft, understand the cuisine, as you said, or even get their hands dirty.
Um, Listen, not every food critique is a chef, right? You don't have to actually cook by your hands to get to understand the food industry. But unfortunately, what I feel that is because we have a mass of people who are influencers, because we have a mass of people who are bloggers or whatever they call themselves. With respect to everyone, like you don't have to become a chef to understand the food, but you need to have the basic knowledge. You need to know the basic stories. You need to actually try different KFC lists, for example. I don't know if it's okay to say a brand name.
Please.
Let's say try different KFC in different countries and in different branches, then decide if you like this brand or not. You know, so it's like developing the right answer and experiment more and more to understand what you're talking about. It's not like I went for the first time to this place, this is my first time I tried this dish ever, and I'm like, oh, I don't like it, or I like it, or I love it. Like you need to compare it to others, and you need to actually train yourself how to what are the differences between this and that.
Brilliant. And of course, going back to your page, I've noticed that your food is incredibly chef driven, I would say, from a professional point of view. But what's the difference between yourself and a chef? Because you really have some great skills to teach people.
um, so my friends call me chef. I don't like to call myself a chef. If you tell me what are you doing in 5 years, which is the interview question usually a job interview question, and I always answer, I don't see myself in advertising anymore. I actually see myself owning my own restaurant, my own cafe, my own business, basically, which is in the food industry. Um, I would say a difference between me and a chef is the chef usually spend years studying uh, all the tools, all the equipments, in a proper school, So they study it as a profession, they practice it in commercial kitchens, and they become a chef, a professional chef who can prepare a meal and serve it to you in a precise way, in a precise time, in a precise tool, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet, and I still need a lot of time to reach that level because I did not study it. I trained with a couple of chefs. When I travel, I always make sure that I meet a chef from a country I'm visiting, and I try to be in the kitchen with them so I can learn something, which is always the highlight of any trips I do. But still, I need a lot to understand what commercial kitchen is. How is it? How is the, how can I express it? It's a whole different world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been in a kitchen, in a commercial kitchen, like once for a company before. I had to step in because we were short of stuff and all these things, and we had a huge event, and I felt so passionate, and I entered, and I was like, I was very nervous about the whole thing, and I understand that it's a complete different industry that not everyone can claim they are a chef. It's really hard, and it's not an easy career at all.
No, it's not an easy career at all. I agree, but it's very rewarding.
It is.
It's very rewarding.
It is.
And look, now I have to ask you, with all of your experience digitally with the food world, working with big brands, what's your funniest gastronaut food story? And you don't need to name names here, okay? No naming and shaming,
No naming and shaming.
unless you really want to.
I don't know. I've been thinking about this now. I don't have an answer yet for it.
Okay, so we can come back to it, no problem. It's
Yeah.
fine. And what advice would you give to somebody who wants to go down the same route as you?
I would say have passion to begin with. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it. That's rule number one. Just because everyone is becoming an influencer or want to take a picture and want to go and have free food, don't go that route. I would say it's okay if you copied others, but try to find your own style as well. We all need to start somewhere and we cannot start from scratch. You need to get inspired by others until you find your own way and your own techniques to express yourself. But have passion, work hard on it because it's not an easy business, and it's a career, it's a business. Um, don't think that if you go after work and you have a free meal and take a picture, that's it. No, you actually need to learn about where you're going. You need to understand them. You need to talk to them. You need to experience it well, and you need to, when you write back, don't rush. It's not about like I took picture, I posted, I'm done with the job. Think about what you want to write. Think about the real experience. Think about if you are doing this for them, so you need to give them justice. Sorry. So you need to actually do right for them, right? So you need to actually influence them. Sorry, you need to actually talk about the brand in the right way to justify your visit. You know, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's bad, whether it's good. You need to be honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to upset few brands. Don't be afraid to upset few places because this criticizing is what will make the business successful, not the shiny picture from the outside. The more you criticize in a good way, of course, in an advice way, and give them your honest opinion, they will learn that there's something wrong in their service or their dishes or something. And that's how you help them and you help yourself.
That's some really amazing advice.
Thank you.
That's really some fantastic advice because I agree with you. As I said before, it's all about the relationship and learning from each other. So that's really fantastic. Where can people find you on social media or professionally if they wanted to get a hold of you?
So I'm available on all social media channels, but my focus is mostly Instagram because my content is mostly pictures driven. So I use Instagram because it's the most picture friendly social media at my handle Homamino. Or if you search for the Gastronaut as well, you will find me. And for professional advices as well, I'm available on LinkedIn.
Perfect. I think we've covered a massive, massive range of topics. And I think it has been very, very enlightening to really hear from what I would say a real influencer, someone who really understands brands, someone who understands the digital world, and someone who goes out of their way to understand food and culture. So I would really like to say a massive, massive thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us today. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me,
It's
honestly.
been really, really amazing. And I will definitely put all of the links up on the show notes so everybody can find you. So don't be surprised if you get inundated with lots of questions and lots of things. But
Bring
really,
them on.
it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure and really had a good time here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to go back to the question or not? Are you sure?
That's fine.
I just couldn't think about